So we're not going to actually.
We'll go ahead and get started. I think we're good. We're going to give people a couple of minutes to jump on, and I want to encourage people in the audience to go ahead and use the chat feature and let us know where you're from, perhaps, or say hello, so we can acknowledge you. And we'll just wait a few seconds here to give people the opportunity to get on before we get started. Thank you for joining us. And as we're waiting for folks to jump on, I just want to say that here at the Millicent Rogers Museum, we are located on land of Indigenous peoples, known today as the Taos Pueblo Red Willow Nation. And so we are very grateful to be here, and we're glad you're joining us tonight. Okay, so I'm going to start out to get us started. My name is Karin Chertok. I'm the Director of Education here at the Millicent Rogers Museum, and I want to welcome you to the December Millicent Unplugged, where we have just some friendly conversations with artists about topics of interest to the arts and cultures. And Millicent Unplugged is a virtual series intended to expand the voice of our community through shared dialogues, conversations, and storytelling in the spirit of friendship. Real people with real stories through the tapestry of arts and culture. Tonight's topic is Indigenous foodways, the heartbeat of fine dining. What is at the heart of any meal well planned, well prepared, and well presented? Is it not the earth? And how can we expand the culinary narrative through conversations such as this? And finally, what do we mean by Indigenous foodways? We hope to answer some of these questions and have an engaging conversation with our guest this evening. And first, I want to thank my friend Sarah Francis, award-winning photojournalist and artist, who has recently volunteered her time and expertise to serve as moderator and co-host of this series of artist discussions. Taos, the people, the land, and its stories have a hold on Sarah's heart, and we are grateful for her ideas and leadership on this virtual series project. Together, Sarah and I welcome friends and guests, Chef Karin Snowflower and pottery artist Shelden Nuñez-Velarde. Both of these fine artists have a heart for sharing the traditional ways while imparting their own unique style to their arts. Chef Karin from Taos Pueblo is a skilled food artisan. I first met Chef Karin when the museum catered an event catered an event. You know what? I'm going to just apologize because my phone's ringing. So I am going to put it away. Sorry. This is unplugged, right?
Well, taking over here, Miss Karin has been a fixture at the museum now for how long? Year. Yes.
Me? Or are you talking to Chef Karin?
Oh, Chef Karin.
Oh, okay.
For about almost 5 years. About 5 years now.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
It is. So let me finish. I'm so sorry for that interruption. I'm going to start over. Chef Karin from Taos Pueblo is a skilled food artisan. I first met Karin when the museum catered an event, she catered an event for the museum. However, she has a long-standing relationship and connection to the museum through the annual Taos Pueblo show. And when we were first introduced to Karin's work, it was because a board member, Ilona Spruce, who is the director of Taos Pueblo Tourism, said, "Oh my God, you have to see what Karin's doing." So we love our chef Karin Snowflower, and we're happy that she's joining us in this conversation. Shelden is a Jicarilla Apache potter who specializes in traditional hand-coiled utilitarian micaceous pottery, in addition to being a skilled artist of beadwork and basketry. He frequently offers workshops and demonstrations at various arts and culture venues, and his work has won several awards throughout the Southwest. I first met Shelden during the Museum Southwest Artisan Virtual Market and had an opportunity to see his work in person and learn about utilitarian use of micaceous clay pottery. Welcome, everyone. And Sarah, do you want to get us started?
I do. And Sheldon, I have a joke to start with.
Okay.
I was talking to myself and Karen, that is Karen Museum, because we are very particular about what we put our food on. And apologizing that this is, let me see, there it is, a Hispanic Talavera design. I am fully cognizant of the beauty of what you do, and we eat on something different every night, this being my favorite, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your process, because of course it's from the digging. We should be on Earth Day, because you take everything out of the earth, Mother Earth, and make art out of it. And Karen, you have a dish too, don't you? Show us.
Oh, you know what? I did not even anticipate that we were going to have this Karen problem. And so,
I have
Karen.
a Starbucks cup.
okay, so yes, we were talking about favorite dishes, and I said, oh, I have this little bowl that's absolutely my favorite bowl. Is that a favorite dish of yours, Sheldon?
Yes.
Because I have a similar. I mean, this
So
is not
beautiful.
micaceous. It's a very rustic, but like this is the bowl I have to eat oatmeal out of, and it fits in my hand, as you can see. And so I think everybody can resonate with their favorite coffee cup or their favorite glass or dish in some way. And so we really wanted to bridge this connection with the food and the vessels that they're cooked in, eaten with, or eaten from, and kind of take that narrative to a different level about fine dining.
And so it's obviously we got the cart before the horse here, because naturally the presentation of the food is major wonderful, and yet what is on the plate and the feeling that it gives, to me, food is not just the hospitality, not just the sharing, but it's also history. It can be a blessing. It can even be philanthropy. And I would love to hear Karen Chef, tell us what you think. What do you think about the social things of food?
The social aspect of food?
Yes.
Well, of course, every tribal gathering and family gathering is based around food and everybody's favorite food. But also, as far as the Tiwa tribe goes and many other tribes, it also, people gather when they forage it, when it's hunted as well. So the gathering around the food starts way before anyone begins to cook it or before it ever arrives on a plate. And as far as socially, wow. Well, to me, food is very personal, because it's how I hold on to all three of my grandmothers. And it's how I remember them. It's how I communicated with them. I was blessed with not one, but three grandmothers. My grandmother, which means round dance. Her name was Margaret. We had a lot of family reunions, and as far as our feast days went, those are my most vivid memories of her and my mother, who also died when I was 10. And those gatherings I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. Yeah, my mom passed on when I was about, well, first my grandma passed on when I was about 9, but she gave me everything she could. You see that her native foodways were the last part of her native self that she could believe she could hold on to and pass on to me. The part that was okay, and some parts that she didn't show anyone else, because she was unfortunate enough to be one of the ones taken away to a boarding school. She couldn't speak her language. She couldn't be herself. But that is the one thing that she held on to that I believe she passed on to me when I held her hand as she went. She was actually hit by a car. I was with her. And so despite all of that and how early that they went in my life, I feel like that they're still with me through the food inspired gatherings. So as far as socially, not only does it stay with you when you're right there at the table, but for all of eternity, that gathering stays with you. So you're always with them. So that connection socially, it resonates.
That's so true. And Shelden, I know your grandmothers played a huge role in the development of your arts and the pottery and the food making vessels.
Yes, it was my grandmother, her cousins, her sisters, her aunts. They were still alive. Probably 15, 20 years ago, they were all alive. Right now, they're all gone, deceased, but they were strong Apache women. And I remember them cooking at ceremonies. We'd cook for the whole tribe. So they have big fire pits full of food, and they have it down to a T for people making bread and cutting, and it worked in harmony. But they were the backbones of our families, and they were very strong women, strong-willed women. And I learned each of them was an artist. One did baskets, moccasins, beadwork, and pottery. That died out, and I'll talk about that later. But from all of them, I hung out with all of them when I was little. So I got a little bit of everything from them, and I keep that with me. But they were very strong women, and I remember some of their foods that they had cooked. And that's what I cook. I do demonstrations and cooking in the Apache food and the micaceous pottery. But that's my memory of gatherings and getting together.
And that's such a common memory across cultures. I think we all have memories of grandmothers, probably. I hate to be that general, but recipes and foodways.
To us, Shelden, that was a really nice thing that you mentioned. We have no living relatives close. And so part of our food making for myself and my husband, this is actually a moment to remember our deceased brothers, our parents, our parents who are, well, we're old people. Many of these generations are now long gone. And I find that as we sit down to eat or as we are cooking together, we do, for whatever reason, we remember them, even if it wasn't their recipe, or it's just things come to mind. It's quite interesting how that happens. I also want to mention on this picture that I'm showing, the butterflies, of course, in many cultures are the symbol of that grandmother, that wonderful woman of her tribe who promoted community, who helped other people. And as she passed on, she becomes a butterfly. So I was wondering if that's something in the Jicarilla that is native to your ancestry.
Those ones, the butterfly that represents like changing in your life. That's basically what that is. But for me, I like to put it on all my pottery. So I put it a lot on my different pots that I make.
Well, they're quite beautiful, and they are so nicely executed. The texture of the pottery and the texture of food is a very interesting thought, how those two things work, the smoothness of the pot and then things like this, which has just incredible texture of Chef Snowflower's offerings. You look at this and it is a carnival of extraordinary, just all kinds of different things. You not only want to touch it, you want to eat it instantly.
Karen, can you talk about some of those textures and the way that you do the fusion of different cultures and modernism with the traditional foodways?
Definitely. Well, this has been a long road since I started doing this, incorporating many of our native foods 20 years ago with gourmet food and fusion, cross-culture fusion was pretty much unheard of, scoffed at even sometimes. But my dad, he was a military man, so he had a love for gourmet foods from all over the world. He was a drill sergeant in the Army for 30 years, and he loved his native food from Taos Pueblo, so I grew up eating both and learning to cook both. And it just kind of melded together, and I just started doing native inspired gourmet food about 15 years ago as my niche, sort of, as my brand. And well, like for example, what you see there in the picture, that is a bison meatball wrapped in Frybread with a wild plum sauce and some coconut milk jasmine rice and red quinoa I see in there. And some type of Asian slaw with Taos Pueblo mint, I believe, is back there. And that is the venison stuffed Frybread on this side. So well, depending on the group of people, I also do a lot of pre-colonial food that doesn't have any pork or gluten or white flour or anything like that. But the fusion is really popular because a lot of people never tried Frybread, and there are a lot of those that say, oh my God, Frybread is the demise of the native people. But it's part of the came around the Industrial Revolution, and it's become a part of our culture, and I don't believe there's anything wrong with it, especially in moderation. And it's a lot of fun, seeing what I can do with our native ingredients and apply it to French pastry techniques, such things like that.
What's in Frybread?
Some very basic ingredients.
Bread.
Some refined white flour. Sometimes I use gluten-free flour. Some fat. I use milk. Some people use water and powdered milk. Some people just water, and some baking powder and salt. But that is something that I like to play around with a lot. Sometimes I'll use chicharroni fat. Sometimes I'll use lamb fat. Sometimes I'll use elk tallow, which is elk fat. Sometimes I'll use bear fat. Just depending on what I'm making, or actually depending on what I have.
That's a very good point. And you mentioned how your dad brought things from the Far East. And of course, one of the things that they talk about is loosely a dish called Happy Family, which is basically whatever you had in the larder at the time. And that's always been my favorite. Every time going to an Oriental restaurant, that's where I go right off. It sounds like that's kind of, in a way, how you determine little tastes, and then there's this serendipity of what happens. And Shelden, I wanted to ask you, obviously, one of the primary uses of your micaceous pottery is for beans.
Yes.
And we all know the three sisters, the squash, the corn, and a variety of beans, and how there is a beauty of this working together. But won't you tell us a little bit about how you use your pottery, and particularly the bean pots and the care of it, because people want to know. They've invested in these extraordinary things you make, and they may not fully know what they've got.
Well, most people that buy pots, majority of them, maybe 70%, it's just for show. Then there's rest, they will actually use them. These pots can be used over a cooking fire or on the stovetop, and they're durable, and we're mainly cooked for stews. I have a bean pot right here. This is more contemporary, and it has a lid, and there's a cloud, and you can see it with rain on there. I do different ideas every year. So I have a little part here where it can hold a lid, and it has handles, and there's designs. So I do different things every year. So this is the latest one. Most people, I did a cooking show about 2 weekends ago in Tucson at the Arizona Gardens, and they had asked me to do a traditional Apache food. So this year I've done dried deer meat, sun-dried deer meat with rice and herbs. And that was a hit. And I had it cooking in the pots over the fire. So it drew a lot of people. And by the end of the demonstration, everything was gone and everybody really enjoyed it. But
So cool.
I had the fire, I had the pots on the fire, and they were really excited to see that you can actually use them. And usually when I go to food festivals, when people see with their own eyes that it can be used, the pots sell themselves. So it was pretty good showing. But I like to show people that you can use them. I give pots to my own family, and they don't use them. They're in their living rooms and the shelves and everything, and I get upset and I tell them they're supposed to be used. I said, if you break it, I'm still alive and I can make another one, but they don't use them, and I get upset with them. But I use mine all the time in my cooking.
To your family, you're the hero, and therefore they're worried about touching it, and it's an artifact on the shelf. So now you're going to have to give them two, one to use and one to show.
Yeah.
And I think, Shelden, I just want to commend you, because as somebody who, works in the museum and in the education department, this is something that I try to point out, and to see these pictures that I have on my background right now, which Sarah was able to put those. This is, we see pots in the museum, and people see pots in the museum, especially folks who aren't familiar with the Southwest region at all. And cognitively, they're just, they're thinking, oh, okay, that's an ancient pot. Oh, how old is it? It's 1,000 years old. And to really be able to make those connections of those pots were utilized. And here today, your pots are utilized. So, they're important and they're artifacts, but they're also purposeful. They were purposeful. And it just shows, I think, the tenacity and creativity of human beings in general. So I have a question, Karen, have you ever cooked in micaceous pots, in micaceous pottery?
I have. Once. My grandma had one, and I believe it's on a shelf now, way up high in my father's house where my brother Daniel now lives. And my grandma, that was her grandma's pot. So we would use it sometimes, and he would use it. And you can get it to a pretty high temperature over direct flame, and it cooks everything very even. And I haven't touched one since he put it way up there. And
Karen, I'm gonna have to make you one.
Yeah.
Oh God, that would be amazing. I get to touch one again.
I was talking to our business manager, Kathleen, today, and she told me, so Kathleen Michaels, Cornbringer, she's a Taos Pueblo member, and she told me that food cooked in a micaceous pot has a very distinctive flavor. And it's very earthy. And she said, it's almost like a dirt taste. It's very hard to describe because it's not unpleasant. It's just so earthy. And I said to her, aha, you know what that makes me think about? Black-eyed peas. Because even though I've not eaten out of micaceous pottery, to me, black-eyed peas have that. It's almost like it just came directly from the earth. And so I think spread the word. People should cook in their micaceous pottery.
Oh yes, definitely. At Taos Pueblo, we love the taste of earth. You catch kids like sneaking pieces of white earth and nibbling on it, which is used in ceremonies and stuff. But yeah, or licking the wall in the village.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, everybody loves the smell of the earth after it rains. It's like eating that.
Talk about the teas, Karen, because the reason I ask is because some of these pots show Shelden cooking teas in the micaceous. And I know every time you've come to the museum, you always bring your tea when you're catering for group tours.
Yes, I do. And that is to bless everybody. And that also has a very earthy, grassy flavor. And it's great for digestion. It's mild, it's caffeine free, and it's always grown right around somewhere where I live. And I'm sure that, well, a lot of other tribes drink it too. And yeah, I bring that every time, I think, so personally, so that we all have something in common. So that even though I change up all the native ingredients and use modern and gourmet techniques as well as the ancient, so that we can all have something in common. Now you've had that something all Taos Pueblo people have had, just the way they've had it for thousands and thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
And
During
like
my
I said,
child,
it comes from right there. So yeah, I feel like I'm giving them something that they can take with them by sharing that glass of tea.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Shelden?
about the tea, during my travels when I did do demonstrations and cooking and with the tea, like if you're in Navajo land, they'll say it's Navajo tea or
Yeah.
Zuni tea, but I was like, no, it's Apache tea because I'm making it.
It's
It's
tea.
tea. Wherever you're
Tea
at,
with
that's
tea.
a specific tea. Yeah, but it's the same tea that
Yes,
grows.
it is.
Mhm.
Just like, well, is it called a Navajo taco or Indian
Yeah,
taco?
or
It depends on where you
exactly.
are. At Taos Pueblo, it's a Tiwa taco.
Yeah, and for us, it's Apache taco.
Yes, indeed. And I will call it that
It
when I
depends
get
on
one
how
there.
I wanna-
you also asked the question about the care of micaceous pottery and cooking.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get to that. After, like, for example, this is a completed pot here. What I do is I put oil on the inside and outside, and I soak it in there. And then I would bake it in the oven for about 250 or 300 for about 40 minutes, and it'll season the pot. And that's how I get the pot ready for cooking. And then you can put it on the stove top, and eventually over time, they'll change color. And if you use it outside, it'll turn black.
Yes.
And you can wash it with a cloth, and it's, no dishwater. And I tell a lot of my customers that.
Right. No dishwasher. Do you have to reseason it after you wash it?
I've never done that. It's just over time, over use, it'll gradually build up more like a cast iron.
Oh,
What
okay.
fills the pores, right?
What is the thing about the micaceous earth that lends itself to a utilitarian pot and other kinds of clay that are strictly decorative?
These pots have the mica in there, and that's what gives it the temperature for cooking. And the other pots, they won't do that. But the mica in there, it's a good temper, and it's really good for the cooking. Where I go to dig the clay, it's everywhere is all full of gold. And the streams and the dirt, it's beautiful up there. And I go there about once a year and dig the clay. And I've been going there since I was 13. I learned pottery making when I was 13, and I'm getting close to half a century now. So I've been doing it every year. I missed it last year during the pandemic, but I went this past year.
It sounds like it's a bit of a almost a religious experience to go pull the clay out. And of course, making the pot. I mean, anything done with hands has a very spiritual thing, at least to me. And I can see the spirit come through on each one of your pots. It's so easy. For instance, this one with the dragonflies on it.
Yes.
These two, they just, they demand to have one's hands put on them. Touch the dragonfly and you feel it flying off.
So beautiful.
The rim, it's wavy like the water. That's why I made it like that also. So it reminds me of the river.
So I want to share about Karen a little bit along those same lines because she just to share with our audience and with you, Shelden, Karen she contracted to cater some large group tours at the museum this whole past tourist season. So we saw her quite a lot, and I would help her some, but this is an aspect that got touched on every single tour, the spirituality inherent in the foods that Karen brought, similar to what we're saying about your pottery, somebody, you know, this kind of pottery making the food in it. And I think that that's something that people almost crave. And we even had people at one tour, a lady came up to me after she had eaten Karen's food and said, "This food brings me to tears." And she said it was the best food they had had on the whole tour. And so I think there's this common thread of the conversation also that connects the arts that both of you engage in, that Karen is always wanting to share and talk about the foods that she brings and makes. And I know, Shelden, you are so heavily involved in workshops and teaching and keeping those. So maybe you guys could talk a little bit about your experience with that spirituality aspect.
Who,
Should I
me
go first,
first?
Sheldon?
Either, sorry, I put you on the spot, sorry.
Okay, as for my part, I had learned when I was 12 years old, and I've been making pots ever since. And when I started, when I was on the art, I guess the art show world and stuff, Jicarilla Apache was non-existent, and there was only 2 people making it, and they were out older, and one's still alive and one passed away, and they're the ones that had taught me, and I kept it going ever since, and more people were aware of the pottery. But when I was young, when a young kid, I remember looking at my grandmother's curio cabinets, and we had all these beautiful blackened micaceous pottery. And I told my grandmother, who made those? And she said, my grandma. And I said, I want to learn. And my grandma said, you know, when I was young, I didn't care. I didn't pay attention. She says, I don't know how to make it. She says, I remember her making them and firing them. And that's as far as we got. And when I was like in the 6th grade, I seen an advertisement for a cultural program to make pottery. So that's where I went, and I met the 2 people that were doing it. And that was Lydia Fasada and Felipe Ortega. They're the ones that I had learned from. And since the age of 13, every year I've been going. And towards, I think when I could drive, I went by myself going up there. And I've been going up to the mountains, and it's a spiritual, past to the eastern part of where we live was all our ancestral territory. So going back to the mountains, being with our, you can feel the presence of our people. I love going through Taos, going over the mountains. And my family, we came from Cimarron. We didn't live on this. All the Apaches were moved here back in the 1887. And our family, we came from Cimarron, not in the town, but in the mountains, that whole area. And when I go through there, I just have a good feeling to be back with our ancestors. This past June, we went to the Boy Scouts Ranch in Cimarron. It's in that area. And I was talking to the people, and they had said that when they had those big fires, they kept finding the burn parts. There was pottery hidden in the trees everywhere.
Oh,
and then we had told them, and we looked at them, and they said these are Jicarilla pots. And then they were asking us why they were there, and we said when people die, or when we just put them away in the trees. So they found a bunch of pots like that. So going back through that area is very spiritual. For me, I can feel the spirits, or how would you say, being hundreds of years of being there, you can feel it. But that's when digging the clay, you say prayers when you fire, and I learned a lot from digging from the 2 people who taught me. So the pots are not used only for cooking, but they're also used in ceremonies. They're used we have 2 ceremonies, and they're used for serving and for taking medicine. And that would be the spiritual connection to the pottery.
What about you, Karen, the spirituality of creating your foods?
Yes, I can totally relate with what he was saying, as far as going up to the mountains, doing the same thing that your ancestors have done for thousands of years, and picking these herbs and spices and praying while you gather them. that, you know, it's medicine to people's bodies and spirits, and, you know, brings them happiness with their taste buds and makes them comfortable. And again, like Shelden was saying, many of the herbs that I use are also used in medicinal ceremonies at Taos Pueblo. So you're, you know, feeding the spirit as well as the palate. When you begin your food journey with that, with going up into the mountains and getting it at the same places that your ancestors did. So it's, for me, in relation to spirituality, goes all the way. My craft and my art, culinary, does not exist without that aspect of the spiritual connection to the earth and our creator. So
And I think
only
that
that can I
totally
connect with
true.
people.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the foods that are on the back plates?
Oh yeah. Well, those are modern contemporary, definitely. I see a laminated pastry ring, which is like a croissant dough that is filled with a triple berry chokecherry blue corn filling, and it's very smooth. And the way I do that is I put the blue corn in a mortar and pestle, or if I'm going to cheat, sometimes I'll put it in a coffee grinder. But either way, I get it to a powdery fine consistency, almost like a cornstarch. And so I incorporated that into like a Swedish pastry ring. And then this one is a puff pastry, which is also a French pastry, and that is a prickly pear, wild plum, arrowroot, and amaranth puff pastry, a vol au vent, if you will. We don't have a word for that in Tiwa. So yeah, that's total fusion right there.
Yep.
To me, Chef Karen, I love the drizzled sugar on this one, because to me, I saw that immediately, and I saw it strings of rain and little flowers coming up. And so I don't know if that was your intent, but to me, instantly.
It is, along with the sprinkles to look kind of like cactus, the prickly pear and the color. And I also forgot that's wild rose dust on there, the candied wild rose petals crystallized and then crushed on top. Yeah, I remember that one.
Now that we're eating dessert, I guess we ought to look at your cake as well. Over here, this is quite a fun creation.
Yeah, that one weighed about 25 pounds.
Oh my.
That's one of several Taos Pueblo sculptures I've done with cake. And oh, that one's even got the little chili ristra down there.
Yes.
Yeah, the ladders there are made out of our Aussie fundo, which is kind of, it's a cross between like a scone and a bizcochito, but that's how we make our cookies, and I made the ladders out of that. And that is a chocolate atole cake, which is one of my signatures. And I love to mix chocolate and blue corn because, well, it reminds me of when I was a kid and eating Cocoa Puffs, the corn and the chocolate together. And it's a classic combination, and it goes well with so many things, especially when it's involved in fusion.
Well, you know, when I saw this on your website, it just made me smile. And I cannot imagine that any child wouldn't go nuts for it. And then the adults would probably want to elbow the kids away because it is so darling. And so bringing all these little things, the little doors, the little windows, and the pots beside, some of those I'm sure are for catching water, and a variety of things, and the ristra, it's quite perfect. Oh, and there, even the beams you can see where the Vegas are. Just attention to detail.
Turquoise doors of Taos Pueblo.
The detail is something that both of you do in the extreme. And Shelden, looking at some of your pots, the time you must spend on the layers of how you do. Karen has just talked about the layers of things that she puts in these extraordinary foods. And it's the same that you're doing. You're collecting the clay, and then you're processing the clay ready to make the pot, and firing the pot and seasoning the pot, and then you begin to cook, and then you begin to present it to your guests. And I'm just in awe of both of you, how you do it all by hand and heart.
Sheldon, you said you were cooking something right now that you were going to show us.
Yeah.
Can you show us?
Oh,
He's
yes.
cooking on his stove.
I'll take you into the kitchen.
Sure.
Right.
There's my junky house. Just kidding. I have pots all over. I have some soup here boiling,
Wow.
and I have some beans here. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So they're nice and steamed. They've been cooking this afternoon, so it's ready.
Wow.
And I put it on the actual stove here. So a lot of people come over to visit, and they're like, "What's on this stove?" And I always keep this on the tape on the stovetop. So that's what I have here cooking, and then it's ready. So it's been here this afternoon.
Wow. That's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
And I wanted to hear more about the your stew that I believe you said was deer meat with beans, or you tell us what was it you said? I wanted to.
I've done several different. What's good is the micaceous pottery goes hand in hand with native food festivals or events. And they usually invite me, and they usually have me cooking, and along with the other people doing the different herbs and styles that they use. We went to one, it was several years ago, where this lady, we were done with our presentation. This lady, she was a Paiute lady. She comes with a tray, and she's like, "You kids stop, and you better try this." We looked at her, and she opened up her tin foil, and there was cooked prairie dogs. Just me and my sister looked at them, and she's like, "Try it." She's like, "Here, you guys eat it." And we're like, "Oh my God." But we put it in our mouth out of respect, and we ate the food. But it was a different cultures coming together. But what I had done was, the first presentation was I made Apache dumpling stew, and my grandma always made that. It's just dumplings with wild parsley. Then I told my grandma, I said, it needs something else. So I had put in ground beef into little meatballs, and I put it in there. And she didn't like it, but then after a while, everybody started liking it. So what I cooked that time was ground buffalo meat in with the dumplings and the wild parsley that you can pick in the springtime. So that was the first one I did. 2 weeks ago, I did the sun-dried deer jerky, and with stew, I pounded the jerky into like a powdery, almost pounded out, pounded down good. And then I put it in with the rice and with some herbs, and I had cooked that. So those are the older style. We don't really have the old style. I don't know what they would cook, but that's basically what the grandmothers had cooked along back then. And plus the beans and the corn, squash, and chilies.
We're getting
a lot of buffalo meat.
Sorry.
A lot of buffalo meat and deer meat. I had seen something about the changings of the seasons. Like for home here, everybody hunts. So when you go to people's houses, they have the deer meat all dried up in the house, and you can smell the chili, people preparing for the fall time. But one of the earliest memories is deer meat, and that's always drying. And most of my relatives had got their share for this summer and this coming fall. So they would give me some. So one of them, also give me deer hides. So I process that too. And I do a little bit of everything, but getting back to the food, that's what I do, try to do different things.
We're getting close to the end of our time at this point. And I think Sheldon's story of the Paiute lady who brought her food, the food is really a handshake across culture, across
Yeah,
people
exactly.
and tribes.
Mhm.
And a last question to Chef Karen. The story of the lady who literally wept over your dinner. This is something that I think you do with your catering business, is that you're presenting culture
Mhm.
and fusion cultures every time you go out. Do you have any story about how this works?
As far as making people cry or the catering
Or
business.
laugh, because we really made them laugh as well.
Oh yeah, they laugh and cry. Well, not sure. I think catering, a caterer is kind of like a wide range, like it implies that there's a group of people, but there isn't. It's just me. So wow, that's a tough one. Run that question by me again.
You've already taken cultural things from several different locations,
Yeah.
and continuing to experiment and create what I'm calling a handshake across cultural and tribal lines. And it just seems like you presenting your work, especially in the environment of the museum, is an extraordinary opportunity to introduce people to your Taos ancestry, as well as all these other things. And they're loving it, obviously.
Yeah, they are, and it's like I said before, it's been a long time coming. I'm glad I'm finally in the time and place where people understand what I'm offering right now, and it's surreal. There was actually a point in my career where people thought I was crazy because people just were not buying the blue corn chili pie filled with venison and handmade paneer cheese. But I'm fortunate. I mean, they make me cry by appreciating what I do, and acknowledging that is actually now a genre of food on the art culinaire. It's so slowly growing, but what they give to me far much more than I could ever imagine giving to them, with their reactions and appreciation and acknowledgement of talented Native Americans and as a whole.
And I think, Karen, I think not to stop you or interrupt you, but also in answer to what Sara is asking, Karen and I shared this experience this tourist season, and I think we shared a really interesting and large opening of conversation between many cultures because of these large groups that came in. I feel myself getting ready to cry over it too, and I think that's why it's difficult to answer. And I can add to this that Karen uses humor, and it's great, and it works, and it puts people at ease. And sometimes we're just being ourselves, and so we don't really know what it is we're doing. But here's an example. She'll say to a group full of people who don't know anything about the Southwest, maybe they're all from Wisconsin or something, and she'll say, well, it's not just about beans and fry bread, and she kind of just uses humor, and it's just organic, and it's real, and so people can connect with it, and it's just,
thanks, Karen.
it is new and different, this idea of fusion. And
Definitely.
I think combining it I think these kinds of conversations are important to have, because I think the Indigenous voice, the Native voice, the Indigenous foodways, need to be included in the national culinary narratives, and she's right. It's not just about beans and fry bread. So
there's other stuff.
We want to offer up some questions or comments And so Irene is saying, this is so amazing. Thank you. Alas, I have to leave. Will there be a link to recording? So yes, Irene, there will be a recording. It takes a couple of days, and I will have this uploaded to the museum's YouTube channel, and then the recording will be sent out and put on our website. So thanks for asking that question. And I'm just going to watch the chat in case people want to share comments and questions while I sort of wrap things up, because I would like. Oh, Shelden, yes, go
I
ahead.
have one question. I was gonna say that my pots are for sale. I don't know how.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Where can people
Right here.
find your pottery?
I guess I have Facebook, Shelden Nuñez-Velarde, or I guess I can give you my telephone number. You guys can message, or I don't know.
Okay, so you can be found on Facebook.
Yes, at
And
Shelden Nuñez-Velarde.
okay, I'm going to type that in if you guys want to keep chatting, and then I'll ask you the same thing, Karen.
Oh, Sheldon, if you can, I had a glimpse of other things on your table. Can you flash us some of the other pieces that you have nearby?
This is a duck pot, and it has the top, and there's the wings, and here's the mouth, and then the spout, so it pours water.
Sheldon, I'm
wow.
sorry, but it's Shelden
Shante, Shante Nuñez-Velarde.
Yep, at or on
Facebook.
on Facebook. Okay.
And if you want to email me, it's GOSHTLISH@gmail.com.
Can you talk about that email address? Because I know it's an interesting.
Oh, that means goshklish, and goshklish means mud in Apache. So that's what I have it as my email. Yeah.
Very
and here's
nice.
this is made by one of my nieces, and that's a butterfly pot, and there's some more little ducks here. These are going for a gallery that I'm presently working with, and here's some pots that are still in formation. So, and here's some more cooking pots here on the table. And I have a bunch of bowls. So that's basically what I have here so far. And these are not done. These are still drying here, and they still need to be dried maybe a couple more days, and then sanded, and then polished, and then fired. So they still have a long ways to go.
And Karen, is it okay if I put your email in the chat here for people?
Yes, please. And also, you can follow me on Facebook, Chef Karin Snowflower, or you can follow me on Instagram, Chef Snowflower. Hang on a second. Chef Karin Snowflower Martinez, I believe it is. One of those, you'll find it.
Question: would people be able to order anything, like say cookies?
Yeah, you can order anything that you see on my page. But the way I do it is if you talk to me, I write a recipe exclusively for the time of year, what's available seasonal, what you like and what your family may like, and the region that you're from. Time of day. No, I'm kidding.
Sara, do you want to say your website or email? Do you want me to type in your email in case people would like to contact you?
Definitely.
Yes, kind of you.
More than welcome.
I will let you know. Here is my new book that is a culmination of 50 years of photographs from Taos Pueblo, from my acquaintance with various members of the Pueblo and the region and its artisans. So it is a memoir of my journey as a photographer, building things out of nothing, and just the delight that I found over this many decades career, because people are what I do, and learning about people and making connections. And that's what my book is all about. Available for me, that's photomirage.com, or of course Amazon, and at the Millicent Rogers Museum. They actually have them available.
We do. Hang on, I'm typing and then I'm gonna wrap up here. Okay, so I would just like to say thank you so much to Karen and Shelden. Such a blessing to have you guys join us.
Thank you.
It was
Thank you.
really joyful. And so I would also like to let everybody know that the Millicent Rogers Museum is having their free holiday community day this Saturday from 11 to 4. We'll have art supply gift bags free for kiddos to be handed out, the first 100 by Santa. We're also going to have Barbara Gonzalez, who is Maria Martinez's great granddaughter, recently wrote a new children's book about Maria's life. She will be here signing and selling her books. And Karen will be here on the portal in the afternoon if people wanted to stop and see her. She'll have some goodies for sale. And the museum is open I'm sorry, I always get, because our days changed, we used to be closed on Mondays during winter, now we're closed on Wednesdays. So we're open Thursday through Tuesday, 11 to 4. Visit our website, www.millicentrogers.org for more information. And Shelden, I hope to connect with you and perhaps have you do a workshop, a pottery workshop, and maybe you and Karen can do that together.
That would be so much fun.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Totally down for that.
Nice meeting you, Karen.
Nice meeting you too, Shelden. Your pots are so beautiful. I can't wait to try one.
Okay.
Okay, Sara, any last words?
They said it all. This has been absolutely first class, past first class, both of you. Many thanks for your contribution and your extraordinary words of experience that to all of us, it was wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bless
See
you,
you later.
everybody.
Bless you.
Thank you.